Hi, I'm Dr. Lakatos, and today we're going to talk about the elements of negligence. We've already talked about intentional torts. Now we're going to get into unintentional torts. And we go through the 4 elements of negligence. We're going to see how it is an unintentional tort. Well, oddly enough, you have a problem in the casebook that I thought it would be fun to demonstrate, and that is swinging a golf club. And in that fact pattern, the person lines up, and you take the club out of their bag, and they line up to hit. And as they're swinging back like this, the club head falls off the golf club and hits somebody standing nearby. So as I swing through, it falls off and it hits somebody in the head. Well, the question is, by this falling off and hitting somebody in the head, has the golfer, me, committed negligence? Well, we have to go through the 4 elements of negligence. We're really just going to focus on the first 2, because then I have a wonderful assistant who's going to help me with a great case to demonstrate the 3rd and 4th elements of negligence. Well, what are the elements? We have a duty of care, a breach of that duty, causation, and damages. So duty of care, breach, causation, and damages. Well, let's focus first on, do we have a duty of care? And that's what this particular example focuses on. Do I have a duty of care to, let's say, inspect my golf clubs? Let's say I bought these brand new. It just took them out of the bag. Line up on the first tee, stretch a little bit, and I swing, and this club head falls off and hits somebody square in the head, and they're rushed to the hospital and suffer serious damages. So let's assume we have damages. Let's assume that this falling off caused the person's damages. The question is, do I, as a golfer, have a duty of care in this situation? Well, normally, when you're teeing up to hit a golf ball, and in my case, I'll try to swing too hard because I'm trying to get some extra distance on the ball, and I swing really hard, and I cause the ball to slice. And there's a bunch of people on the other golf area who the ball is about to strike. Well, I would yell out 4 to make sure they're aware the ball's coming and hopefully they won't get hit. Well, if I yell out 4, I've satisfied my duty of care. Well, is there a duty of care for me to yell club head coming? I mean, how would I know that this club head would actually fall off if it's a brand new club? Who has the duty of care? Well, one could argue that the duty of care is to the manufacturer of this golf club, which is TaylorMade, that they should make a brand new club head that does not fall off, at least at the immediate use, or at least for the first few years. If it was an old set of golf clubs, one might say that I have a duty of care to inspect my clubs before I use them. I'll give you an example. His name is, let's say, Dr. B. Well, Dr. B has these clubs that are at least 100 years old. And I've been on the golf course with him, and he had a 5-iron. He went to take a shot, and I kid you not, the club head of the 5-iron went further than the ball did. Well, in that case, one could make an argument, a strong argument, that he had a duty of care to inspect his clubs, and after a certain amount of years, he shouldn't have been using them anymore. Another good example related to driving. If you reach a certain age, and some of you have already experienced this, and there's an old fart behind the wheel. Let's say that person's 82 years old, a little old lady driving. You know how they are, you could barely see their heads. It looks like there's absolutely nobody driving the car. And they're going really, really slow, or they don't signal. You can come up with any scenario with an old person. Well, they should no longer drive. They have a duty of care not to drive anymore. Well, the same kind of concept with a club. If it's too old, the duty of care now shifts, the burden shifts to the golfer and no longer the manufacturer. Manufacturer is not deemed to make a club that lasts forever. So keep that in mind. Well, in this case, we could argue more strongly that I do not have a duty of care, okay, to necessarily inspect my golf clubs because they're brand new. Okay? Well, if they're old, we could argue I have a duty of care. Let's go back to IRAC analysis, where we have IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. How would I successfully argue this using IRAC analysis, which I do expect all of you to be using now in your essays? and I will grade your assignments and your essays on your exam based on IRAC analysis. Well, your issue is this. Did Dr. Lakatos owe a duty of care to either inspect his golf clubs or make sure that the surrounding area was safe when he was swinging his golf club? The rule is negligence. Negligence is defined as 1A, having a duty of care, 2, a breach of the duty of care, 3, causation. Within causation, there's causation in fact and proximate causation, which led to the person's damages, the fourth element. So we will get to causation and damages in a few minutes. So there's your rule. Again, the issue, the rule, the issue focused on the first two elements of negligence. Your analysis. Well, in this case, we do not have reason to believe that the golf clubs were old. So let's assume that the golf clubs were new or relatively new. Therefore, a golfer doesn't necessarily have a duty to inspect their golf clubs. They should have reason to believe that the golf club will not fall off when they're swinging their golf club. As a result, the golfer does not have a duty of care. He or she did not commit negligence, because in order to commit negligence, all four elements must be present. And I'm stressing that. If you analyze the elements of negligence and one of them is missing, you cannot say Dr. Lakatos committed negligence. You don't say guilty, and I want to emphasize that because you'll see that in a more tense atmosphere. Guilty denotes a crime. Negligence is a tort. So when we're discussing negligence, if we find the person committed negligence, they are liable for negligence. L-I-A-B-L-E, liable for negligence, because they're going to be liable for monetary damages. Whereas in a crime, they're going to be guilty of a crime. Okay, and there's no crime committed here. Guilty means they're going to go to prison. So in a more tense atmosphere, if I say true or false in this scenario, let's assume I did commit negligence. Say Dr. Lakatos is guilty of negligence. It's false because you can't say guilty of negligence. It's liable for negligence. That is not a trick question. Again, remember, guilt, crime, liable, tort. So make sure you have that in your notes. Well, let me call over now my assistant, my son Dylan, and he's going to show you a nice piece of artistry that I put together of the Long Island Railroad. Dylan, would you like to say hello?
Hi.
Okay. Well, this is a depiction of what's beneath Madison Square Garden in New York City, and that is the Long Island Railroad. Beneath the Madison Square Garden are train tracks, both the Long Island Railroad and Amtrak. And this is a very, very famous case. And in this case, the following happens. We have a lady here named Mrs. Palsgraf, and she's standing on the upper end of the platform. Okay? And it's around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And if any of you have been to New York, you know that in a New York minute, or in a New York minute, a lot can be accomplished. Mrs. Palsgraf every day gets to the Long Island Railroad at 5 o'clock after getting her popcorn. She likes to sit and chill and relax, or stand and chill and relax, and wait for her 5:15 train to come in. But while she's waiting, we have another train in the station. It's the 5:00 train to, let's say, Port Washington. She's going to Huntington, so she's waiting for the next train. Well, it's now approaching 5:05, and as 5:05 starts to come to fruition, the doors on the train start to close. As they're starting to close, a man runs down the stairs here. He runs down the stairs, and he has a bag in his hand. And as the doors are closing, this conductor actually starts to help him get on the train. And this conductor in here starts to help pull him onto the train. As they're doing that, this bag falls, and it actually causes an explosion so strong that up here, where Mrs. Palsgraf is standing, a tile from the ceiling falls down and hits her on the head. And she actually suffers severe damages and is rushed to the hospital.